Last but not least is data analysis, and everybody loves to analyze data, right? So if you're not living to design evidence-based practice projects and then conduct them, you are living to analyze data. So this is evaluating your project outcomes. All right, so we're just going to talk about 2 categories of data, how to manage it, how to analyze it, and then what would be the best types of data collection and analyses for your own particular study. Overall, you have 2 categories of data, quantitative and qualitative. Quantitative is numbers, qualitative is words. So they could be written or observed. All right, so for your Thanksgiving Day, did you enjoy yourself? That's the outcome that we're looking at. So we talked about this in the previous slide, quantitative data. How many leftovers, how much food was in the trash at the end of the day, and how many people came out of the ones that you invited. The qualitative is your verbal. I had a great time. There's a lot of laughing, there's a lot of hugging, nobody was beating anything, there wasn't any knife fights or anything like that. And then what would you do different the next time? Okay, so when you're starting to evaluate or analyze your evidence-based practice project data, you have these different categories. You have your data management, which is your data entry. Then you have your analysis, which is your statistical testing. Then you have your application to practice. So at the end of the day, what does all of this data mean, and what am I going to do with it? And that's evidence-based practice 4. So your quantitative data management. You already have those instruments that are measuring your study outcomes, your surveys, your thermometers, your pain scales, whatever it is. You already came up with your code book to tell you that 0 is no falls, 1 is a fall. 0 is lavender, or 1 is lavender, 0 is no lavender, infusion drops. So it's real important that you have a code book that reflects every piece of data you are collecting. You are going to decide in advance which team member is going to enter that data. You have to have it secured, locked, password protected, whatever the standard of data management here at Excela Health is, you either have to meet or exceed it. And I always like to enter my data in the order I collect it. So when you are designing your data collection form, keep that same order as you would collect, as you would enter. There's too much room for error if you're asking somebody to enter data that's different from the order in which it's collected. Too much room for error. And you always keep your hard copy. If you were doing hard copy data collected, you have to lock that up. You have to double check your data entry. There's always safeguards in place to make sure that your database is managed properly. When you're doing qualitative data, which is a little more involved, you might have written words, and you have to either take the written words and put them into themes. You might have a video that you're watching, and you have to decide how you're categorizing people's movements or what it is that they're doing. Like if you're in a simulation lab and you're watching what the nurse is doing, well, you're going to have it all broken down into step 1, clean the skin to put the IV in. Step 2, open the step 3. So you're going to have that checklist in place to make sure that you're watching, that they're following the protocol that you've set up for inserting that IV. So that could be qualitative data, what they're saying, what they're doing. So it's the same thing with qualitative data. You have to come up with ways that you're going to theme out your data. There's software for that. I don't work with that, but Deb Thompson does. She's really good with that. Then your data management. You're going to decide in advance if you want to use an Excel spreadsheet. That would be the way I would go because everybody's familiar with that, and we could always upload it into a statistical package. And then you have to analyze it. So quantitative data, statistical packages, I like to use SPSS. There's other products that are out there that to me are a little more sophisticated. This is a point-and-click system. Anybody can do it. Every one of you can do it. Just so you pick the right test.
We also have a resident Liza Whitke at Excela Health who can tell you how to do anything in Excel that you can do in SPSS, and you don't have to buy it.
Then you don't have to spend that $100 on SPSS.
You're ever doing this, keep on it.
Oh, that is great. That is great. Thank you. Thank you, Tracy. That is great news. Keep that name in mind. Call me. Okay. So for your quantitative data, we divided it into non-parametric and parametric statistical tests. So the non-parametric works with nominal and ordinal, and the parametric works with interval and ratio level data. Again, software packages, Excel, or I like SPSS. And this is why I'm here to help you with this. When you get into things like regression analyses and all that, then I need help. Because I don't know how to do any of that. So then we get a statistician, maybe this person knows regression analyses and things that are way beyond my capabilities. Okay, so the non-parametric statistical tests, we're looking at measures of central tendency, one group. So you have one group of people like all of you sitting in this room, nominal level data. The data has a number, but that number has no value. Did you fall at home in the last month? Yes or no? Did you fall at home? Did you fall in the hospital in the past 24 hours? Yes or no? So the statistical test that you use for nominal level data, yes, no, maybe, is a simple tally. You add them up, and that's all you do with them. If you want to look at differences in proportions of the people who fell at home, didn't fall at home, you have your little table, that's a chi-square, okay? So this is just a single group, nominal level data. Ordinal level data, you have a ranking, but there's not equal distance between the ranks. So what are your top 3 priorities for nursing research? So there might not be, so your first priority isn't an equal distance between the second and third priority. You could use the mode, which is the most frequent, or the median. That's about all you could use. So if you rank ordered 1, 2, and 3, the distance isn't the same between, and that's all you're going to do there. It's just a mode or a median, nothing fancy. Now, when you get, we're still with one group, non-parametric, interval level data, this is where you do have equal distances between your rankings. Satisfaction with PM care on a scale of 1 to 10, 1, 2, there's equal distance between each one of those. Like a pain scale, there's equal distances. You can do a mean, you could do a standard deviation, and you could do a correlation, and that's about all you could do with that. There's other statistical tests you could do. Ratio level data, there's an absolute 0. Now, temperature, you never really have an absolute 0. You do with heart rate and with blood pressure and with respirations, but you can kind of get away with temperature with an absolute 0. And for anything that has an absolute 0, you could do your mean, your standard deviation, as well as correlations. Okay. How did I go backwards? Okay, there we are. Now, we're only talking about one group. Okay, so we have quantitative, for non-parametric tests for one group. So if we had this survey that we gave to all of you here, we'd say, well, I'm going to give you a candy survey. Do you like candy, yes or no? So that would be a simple tally. You would add up for the 20 people in the room, how many liked candy and how many didn't, and you might be able to do a chi-square. Maybe. Ordinal level data, what is rank your favorite candy? So you would have your rank, but the rank between 1 and 2 and 3 isn't going to be the same distance, so you could do the mode and the median. I eat chocolate how many times a day? 0, 1, or 2. You could do a mean, because that's a whole number, and you have an absolute 0. Although nobody here would probably pick the 0, but you never know. Okay, quantitative data, parametrical statistical tests for 2 groups. So you now want to draw comparisons between 2 groups. So if we had you all in a group and we gave you that again, we could divide you into managers and educators, or manager, staff, educators, like that. So you would have 2 groups of people. Now we have something to say about those 2 groups. Do you like candy? Yes or no? Now you might be able to do a chi-square, because you would have your manager or your staff, and then it would be the yes or no. Spearman rank, you would do for your ordinal level data, because now you have 2 groups to compare. And then for your interval ratio level data, i.e. chocolate, you would do the student's t-test to compare the means between the 2 groups. So it's kind of fun to have 2 groups, I think. So for qualitative data, how do you feel when you eat candy? How do you feel when you eat chocolate? And then you would be able to describe to me what it's like to eat chocolate. And then we would take your words that you write down and put them into themes. And we would say feeling ecstasy, feeling good, whatever we came up with about your experience with having chocolate. All right, so going back to these poor people that keep falling at home in the past 30 days and falling in the hospital, we have that code book, and then we have to have numeric data. So Excel does not like yes or no. It likes 1 or 0 or 2 or something like that. So we always have to have the number, and then you're going to decide what you want it to be. Do you want no fall to be a 0 or fall to be a 1, or no fall to be a 1 and fall to be a 2? Whatever it is that you want to set it up, and then you're going to decide if they fall in the hospital, what type of fall did they have? Did they fall from a height? Did they fall from a standing position? Did they fall from a seated position? Whatever it is that you use now to describe how people fall is what you would use here. Don't make up anything new. Decide in advance. Again, who's going to be the keeper of the data, who's going to enter the data. Make sure that everybody is following the logbook, and they're following the logbook and entering in the specific time periods that you've already set up. We have that secure location. We have everything locked up. Everything is labeled. And then when you start to analyze your data, here's some consideration that I came up with. So when you fell at home, yes or no, that's your nominal level data, and you're just going to add it up. Did you fall in the hospital? Yes or no? Nominal level data, you just tally the responses. Fell at home? Yes or no? Fell at the hospital? Yes or no? That's your 2x2 chi-square table. That tells you the differences in proportions between people who fell at home and who didn't, and those who fell in the hospital. You can do maybe some averages depending on other patient demographics that you're coming up with. And then you might have had some other data that came in that you wanted to look at as well, that you added in with your PICO question, and then we could all work together to analyze it. So then when you start to apply this into practice, what does this mean? Does it mean that, geez, nobody falls here at Excela Health, even though people fell at home, they didn't fall here? Now why is that? We're giving people drugs here. You would think that it would make them a little more groggy, or they're sick. You would think they would be falling here. Is it supervision? Is it footwear? Is it because people are in a new environment, they're a little more cautious and they're not as cavalier? I don't know, maybe they're better hydrated. So you'd have to analyze and figure out, what do these data mean, and then what should we be doing about it? So then once you have finished all of your data collection and you've drawn your conclusions, you send your report back to the Evidence-Based Practice Committee, and then you start to move this into Evidence-Based Practice 4 of how you're going to change practice here at Excela Health. You can always go back and look at the literature. What did the literature find in terms of patients falling, or in terms of infusion drops, or whatever your question happened to be? And are our findings generalizable to nursing knowledge in particular, overall, or is this just a small stepping stone of a project that we're going to use to do our next project with? And then what was your experience with participating in this evidence-based practice project? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What will we do differently when we do our next project here at Excela Health? So I love to collect data, and the accuracy is crucial in data collection and management, and always having your backup systems in place to help you in keeping your data secure are paramount to coming out with quality data that you can analyze and apply in practice. The end.